The blood on Mara Chen's hands had long since dried, but she could still smell the metallic temps in the air of her penthouse office. 40 floors above Manhattan, the city sprawled beneath her like a circuit board, its lights pulsing with the rhythm of money-changing hands. She pressed her palms against the floor-to-ceiling windows, leaving ghostly prints on the glass. "Ma'am, he's here." Mara didn't turn around. Her reflection stared back from the darkened window, a woman of 34 who had learned to wear power like armor. Her black hair fell in a severe bob, framing angular cheekbones that could cut glass. The red dress she wore cost more than most people made in a year, but it was the coldness in her dark eyes that made grown men stammer. "Send him in." The elevator doors whispered open, and Detective James Hawke stepped into her domain. 6 feet of controlled tension wrapped in a rumpled coat that had seen better decades. His green eyes swept the room with the practiced assessment of a man who had seen too much. Salt and pepper stubble shadowed his jaw, and there was something broken in the way he held his left shoulder. "Ms. Chen." His voice carried the gravel of too many cigarettes and not enough sleep. "Detective." She finally turned, and the space between them crackled with unspoken history. "I assume this isn't a social call." James's laugh held no humor. "Social calls don't usually involve dead federal witnesses." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mara's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Fear, perhaps. Or recognition of a game that had just shifted into dangerous territory. "I'm not sure what you're implying." Thomas Brennan. Ring any bells? Was supposed to testify against the Kozlov syndicate next week. Instead, he's decorating the Hudson River. James moved closer, his footsteps muffled by carpet that cost more than his car. "It's a funny thing about Tommy. He had your business card in his wallet." Mara walked to her desk, each step calculated. The mahogany surface gleamed under recessed lighting, empty except for a crystal paperweight and a single manila folder. "I meet many people, Detective. I can't be expected to remember every business acquaintance." "Business acquaintance." James picked up the paperweight, weighing it in his palm. "Is that what we're calling murder witnesses now?" "Careful, Detective. That sounds dangerously close to an accusation without evidence." The tension between them was a living thing, fed by years of circling each other like predators. Mara Chen, the untouchable queen of corporate espionage. James Hawke, the detective who had made destroying her empire his personal crusade. They had danced this dance before, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the stakes had blood on them. "I have evidence." James set the paperweight down with deliberate care. "I have Tommy's phone records. 3 calls to your private line in the week before he died. I have security footage of you meeting with him at that little cafe in Brooklyn, the one you thought was too far beneath the radar." Mara's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "You've been watching me, Detective. How flattering. For 3 years. Every move, every deal, every time you thought you were untouchable." He leaned across her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with something darker. "But you made a mistake this time, Mara. You killed the wrong man. I haven't killed anyone. Tommy wasn't just a witness. He was my informant. He was feeding me information about your operation, about how you've been selling classified defense contracts to the highest bidder, about how you've been playing puppet master with half the politicians in Washington." The color drained from Mara's face, but her voice remained steady. "You're fishing, Detective. Am I?" James opened his coat and pulled out a small recording device, because Tommy was wearing a wire the last time you met. Right up until someone put 2 bullets in his chest and dumped him in the river. The room fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic 40 floors below. Mara stared at the recorder as if it were a loaded gun pointed at her heart, which in many ways it was. "What do you want?" "The truth." About Tommy. About the Kozlov connection. About why someone with your resources would risk everything to silence one federal witness." Mara moved to the window again, her reflection now showing cracks in her perfect composure. "The truth is a luxury neither of us can afford, Detective. Try me." She turned back to him, and for a moment her mask slipped completely. What James saw beneath made his breath catch. Not the cold corporate shark he'd been hunting, but something far more dangerous. A woman with secrets that could topple governments and the desperate look of someone who had run out of moves. "Because Tommy wasn't just a witness," she said quietly. "He was my brother." The admission hit James like a physical blow. 3 years of investigation, 3 years of seeing Mara Chen as the enemy, and he had never uncovered this connection. He studied her face, looking for the lie, but found only raw grief barely held in check. "Your brother, half-brother, different fathers, same mother who died when I was 15, and he was 12. He went into foster care. I went to work." Her voice was mechanical, as if she were reading from a script. "I built this empire to protect people like him, to make sure no one would ever be powerless again." "Then why was he going to testify against you?" Mara's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "Because he found out what I really do, what I've become, and he couldn't live with it." James felt the ground shifting beneath him. The case he thought he understood was transforming into something much more complex, much more personal. "What you really do?" "I don't sell secrets to foreign governments, detective. I sell them to the highest bidder regardless of nationality. American, Chinese, Russian. It doesn't matter. Information has no loyalty, and neither do I. Jesus Christ, Mara. Tommy was going to destroy everything I built. Not just my business, but the network that keeps dozens of people alive. People who depend on me for protection from men like Viktor Kozlov." The name hit James like ice water. Viktor Kozlov, the Russian crime boss who had been untouchable for a decade, the man who killed families as easily as ordering coffee. Kozlov's involved in this? Kozlov owns half the federal prosecutors in this city. He knew about Tommy's testimony before the FBI did. He knew Tommy was my brother before I did. Composure finally cracked, and James saw tears she was fighting to hold back. "I didn't kill Tommy, detective, but my sins did." The elevator chimed softly, and both of them froze. Mara's eyes went wide with genuine terror. Expecting someone? James's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. "No one has access to this floor after hours." The elevator doors opened, and 3 men in expensive suits stepped out. Their faces were professionally blank, but their eyes carried the cold efficiency of killers. The man in the center smiled like a shark scenting blood. "Ms. Chen, detective." "Hawke, how convenient to find you both here." James recognized the voice from surveillance recordings. Anton Kozlov, Viktor's nephew, and heir apparent to the family business. A man who had turned torture into an art form. "This is a private building," Mara said, but her voice betrayed her fear. "Not anymore." Anton stepped forward, and his men flanked him with practiced precision. "My uncle sends his regards, and his condolences about your brother. Such a tragedy when family gets caught in business affairs." James drew his gun, but one of the men already had a rifle trained on him. "NYPD, all of you, hands where I can see them. Detective Hawke, the man who's been such a thorn in our operations. Uncle Viktor has heard so much about you." Anton's smile widened. "Did you really think you could investigate the Kozlov family without consequences? What do you want?" Mara stepped between James and the gunman, and the protective gesture wasn't lost on him. "Simple. You're going to give us the location of every safe house, every hidden account, every piece of information you've collected over the years. Exchange, Detective Hawke gets to live. And if I refuse..." Anton nodded to one of his men, who raised his weapon toward James. "Then you'll watch another person you care about die because of your choices." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Mara looked at James, and in her eyes he saw a calculation that chilled him. She was weighing his life against her empire, measuring the cost of salvation. "You have 30 seconds to decide," Anton said, checking his watch with theatrical precision. Mara Chen, the woman who had built an empire on secrets and ruthless calculation, closed her eyes and made a choice that would destroy everything she'd ever worked for. "I need more time." Anton's laugh echoed through the penthouse like breaking glass. "Time is a luxury you've run out of, Miss Chen. Your 30 seconds are now 20. Mara's mind raced through possibilities like a computer processing data. Every angle, every escape route, every potential outcome streamed through her consciousness in the space of a heartbeat. But there was only one variable that mattered now. James Hawke, the man who had spent 3 years trying to destroy her, was about to die because of her choices. 15 seconds. She opened her eyes and looked directly at James. In that moment, something passed between them. An understanding that transcended their history of mutual antagonism. He gave her the slightest nod, and she saw in his green eyes not accusation, but acceptance. 10 seconds. The files are in my safe, Mara said quietly. Biometric lock, my handprint and retinal scan. Anton's smile was triumphant. Much better. Where? Behind the Monet. She gestured toward a painting that dominated the far wall. But I should warn you, the safe has a secondary security system, which is Mara's own smile was sharp as a blade. Shaped charges wired to detonate if the wrong person tries to access it. One wrong move, and this entire floor becomes a crater. The confidence in Anton's expression flickered. You're bluffing, am I? Mara moved to her desk and pressed a hidden button. The lights dimmed and a soft red glow emanated from behind the painting. I didn't build this empire by being careless. Anton, every contingency has been planned for. James watched the exchange with growing admiration. Even facing death, Mara was still playing chess, while everyone else played checkers. But he could see the trap closing around both of them. Then you'll open it yourself, Anton decided, slowly. And if you try anything clever, the detective's blood will redecorate your expensive carpet. Mara walked to the painting, each step measured. The Monet slid aside at her touch, revealing a steel safe that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. She placed her palm on the scanner, then leaned forward for the retinal scan. The mechanism whirred softly, then clicked open with finality. Inside were rows of data drives, physical files, and what looked like enough incriminating evidence to topple governments. Anton's eyes gleamed with greed as he stepped closer. Beautiful. Uncle Victor will be so pleased. That's when Mara made her move. The explosion wasn't massive, but it was perfectly placed. The shaped charge she had mentioned was real, but not in the safe. It was built into the wall behind it. The blast sent Anton flying backward, his ears ringing, temporarily blinded by debris and smoke. In the chaos, Mara grabbed James's hand. Move. They ran for the emergency stairs, as shouts erupted behind them. James could hear Anton screaming orders in Russian, the sound of boots on marble, the metallic click of weapons being loaded. Ow! How long do we have? James gasped as they pounded down the stairwell. Not long. The building's security will respond, but they're on Kozlov's payroll. Mara's heels echoed in the confined space. There's an exit in the parking garage. My car. They'll be watching your car, not this one. They burst through the garage door, and Mara led him to what looked like a maintenance worker's beat-up Honda. She popped the hood and pulled out a small device, transforming the humble sedan into something that purred with barely contained power. Corporate espionage pays well, she said, sliding behind the wheel. Jesus, what else don't I know about you? Everything, detective. Everything. They roared out of the garage just as black SUVs converged on the building. In the rearview mirror, James could see muzzle flashes from the penthouse windows.
Whatever.
Mara had left behind was keeping Anton and his men very busy. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't follow. Mara took a hard right, tires screaming against asphalt. But first, you need to understand what you've gotten yourself into. I'm listening. Victor Kozlov doesn't just run a crime syndicate, James. He runs a shadow network that includes federal judges, senators, and half the intelligence community. Tommy wasn't just going to testify about my business. He was going to expose the entire system. James felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. That's why they killed him. That's why I couldn't protect him. Her voice broke slightly. I tried to get him to disappear, to take new identity papers and vanish. But he said he couldn't live with the blood on his hands. He said he had to do the right thing, even if it destroyed us both. The blood on his hands? Mara was quiet for a long moment, navigating through back streets with the skill of someone who had planned this route many times. 3 years ago, I sold information about a joint CIA-FBI operation to neutralize a terrorist cell. I thought it was just routine intelligence, but the operation went wrong. 12 agents died. James's blood ran cold. The Mumbai incident. Tommy helped me decrypt the files. He didn't know what they contained until it was too late. When he found out those agents died because of information we sold, it broke something inside him. Why are you telling me this? Because if we're going to survive the next 24 hours, you need to know who I really am. It's not the corporate shark you've been hunting, but the woman who's been trying to find a way out of this nightmare for 3 years. They pulled into what looked like an abandoned warehouse in Queens. But as they got out of the car, James noticed the subtle signs of habitation. Security cameras hidden in the shadows, reinforced windows, the faint hum of generators. Safe house? He asked. 1 of 12. Tommy helped me set them up before he... double quotes, she couldn't finish the sentence. Inside, the warehouse was transformed. Living spaces carved out of shipping containers, surveillance equipment that belonged in government facilities, and enough weapons to outfit a small army. But what caught James's attention were the photographs covering one wall. Dozens of faces. Men and women of all ages. Who are they? People I've helped disappear. Witnesses who would have died without new identities. Families fleeing from men like Kozlov. Children who would have been sold into slavery. Mara's voice was soft, almost reverent. My real business detective. The one that doesn't make money. James stared at the wall of faces, his entire understanding of Mara Chen crumbling and reshaping itself. You're not just a corporate spy. I'm a ghost maker. I help people vanish when staying alive means staying hidden. The corporate espionage pays for it, but this is why I do it. The network Kozlov wants to destroy. Every name, every location, every safe house. If he gets that information, these people die. All of them. She turned to face him, and he saw the weight of all those lives in her dark eyes. That's why I gave him fake files. James's heart stopped. What? The safe contained fabricated intelligence. Enough real names mixed with false information to keep him busy for weeks. But eventually he'll figure it out, and then... Viktor Kozlov will do what he's always done to people who cross him. He'll make us suffer before he kills us. A soft chime indicated someone was approaching the warehouse. Mara moved to a bank of monitors, her face going pale as she saw the screens. That's impossible. James looked over her shoulder and saw black SUVs surrounding the building. Anton Kozlov stood beside the lead vehicle, speaking into a radio, very much alive and uninjured. Ow. How did they find us? Ow. Mara's hands flew over the keyboard, checking. Security systems, running diagnostics. Her face went white as the truth became clear. The tracker. She looked at James with dawning horror. In your coat? They've been following us since we left the penthouse. James felt his blood turn to ice as he reached into his pocket and found the small device. How long had it been there? How many of Mara's secrets had he unknowingly betrayed? Mara, I didn't know. It doesn't matter now. She was already moving, grabbing weapons, activating security protocols. We have maybe 3 minutes before they breach the perimeter. There has to be another way out. There is. But it means leaving all of this behind. Everyone on that wall becomes a target. James watched her struggle with the choice, seeing the woman behind the reputation for the first time. Mara Chen wasn't a villain. She was someone who had built an empire of shadows to protect the powerless. And now that empire was about to crumble because of his presence. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Save the apologies. We need to move. But as they reached the rear exit, it burst open. Anton Kozlov stepped through, flanked by armed men, his smile wider than ever. Miss Chen, detective, did you really think you could run from the Kozlov family? This time there was nowhere left to run. Drop your weapons and step away from each other. Anton's voice carried the casual authority of a man who had orchestrated countless executions. His men moved with practiced precision, forming a semicircle that cut off every escape route. There was something different about Anton now. The explosion at the penthouse had left him with a bandage over his left eye and a limp that spoke of shrapnel damage. Mara set down her pistol and raised her hands slowly. Mind racing through tactical possibilities. 6 armed men in a confined space. No cover, no backup coming. The math was simple and brutal. Excellent. Anton stepped closer, favoring his injured leg. Now, Miss Chen, shall we discuss the consequences of your little deception I gave you? What you wanted, you gave me garbage. Fabricated intelligence, false locations, dead drops that lead nowhere. His remaining eye glittered with malice. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Mara's expression didn't change, but James saw her hands clench slightly. I don't know what you mean. It's the warehouse in Baltimore. It's the one your files claimed. Was a major distribution hub for sensitive documents. We sent a team. Anton's smile was cold as Arctic wind. They found nothing but rats and rusted machinery. The safe house in Miami that supposedly protected a former federal prosecutor and his family, empty for months. The Swiss bank account with $20 million closed 3 years ago. James watched Mara's face carefully. Even now, even caught in an impossible situation, she was calculating, looking for angles, for weaknesses, for any way to turn this around. Perhaps your intelligence was outdated, perhaps. Anton gestured to one of his men who produced a tablet. Or perhaps you've been playing a much deeper game than anyone realized. The screen showed surveillance footage from the warehouse, but not current footage. This was from months ago, showing Mara meeting with federal agents. The timestamp made James's blood run cold. 3 months before your brother decided to become a federal witness, Anton continued. You were already in contact with the FBI, already planning to betray us. That's impossible, James said before he could stop himself. Is it, detective? Anton turned his attention to James with predatory interest. Did you really think your investigation was so brilliant that you uncovered the Kozlov connection on your own? That you stumbled onto Ms. Chen's activities through pure detective work? The implication hit James like a physical blow. You're saying she led me to her. I'm saying Ms. Chen has been manipulating this entire situation from the beginning. Your investigation, your brother's testimony, even your presence here tonight. All carefully orchestrated. James looked at Mara, searching her face for denial. Instead, he found something worse. The careful neutrality of someone whose deepest secret had just been exposed. Mara, his voice was barely a whisper. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. James felt the ground shifting beneath him again, but this time the betrayal cut deeper. Tell me I wasn't just another piece on your chessboard. Mara was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes meeting his with something that might have been regret. You were supposed to arrest me 6 months ago. Clean, simple, no complications. I would serve 5 years in minimum security. My network would stay hidden, and when I got out, everything would still be here. Did? Anton prompted, clearly, enjoying the revelation. But you were too good at your job, James. Too thorough. You kept digging, kept following leads that were supposed to be dead ends. You started uncovering things that I couldn't let you find. James felt something break inside his chest. So you decided to control me instead. I decided to protect. You. Her voice cracked slightly. The deeper you dug, the more dangerous you became to people like Victor Kozlov. I couldn't let you stumble into this blind. How noble, Anton said mockingly. A touching story of protection and sacrifice. Shall I tell you what really happened, detective? James didn't want to hear it, but he had no choice. Ms. Chen realized you were close to discovering her network. Too close. So she made a deal with my uncle. She would feed him information about federal operations in exchange for your protection. Your brother's testimony was supposed to be the final piece. He would implicate enough low-level operators to satisfy the authorities while keeping the real network intact. That's not true, Mara said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Then explain the Mumbai operation. Explain how 12 federal agents died because of intelligence you sold to finance your little humanitarian project. The warehouse fell silent except for the distant hum of machinery. James stared at Mara, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not a villain or a hero, but something far more dangerous. A woman who had convinced herself that her ends justified any means. The Mumbai intelligence, he said slowly. You knew it would get agents killed. I thought it was routine surveillance data. I didn't know about the operation, but you sold it anyway. To buy freedom for the people on your wall. Yes. Admission was barely audible, and Tommy found out. Tommy helped me process the intelligence before I realized what it was. When the news broke about Mumbai, when we saw those agents' faces on television, Mara's composure finally cracked completely. He couldn't live with what we'd done. But I couldn't let him destroy everything we'd built to save those people. So you let him die. I tried to stop him. I tried to make him understand that his testimony would expose everyone we'd helped, that Victor would hunt them all down. Anton laughed, the sound echoing off the warehouse walls. Such a tragic tale. But you're missing the best part, Detective. James had heard enough revelations for one night, but Anton wasn't finished. Your brother didn't just stumble onto Ms. Chen's operation. He was recruited, specifically chosen, because of his connection to you. The words hit James like bullets. That's impossible, is it? A federal witness with a detective brother who happens to be investigating corporate espionage? Someone who could provide inside information about police operations while maintaining plausible deniability. It was perfect. James looked at Mara with growing horror. You used Tommy to get to me? No, that's not. She couldn't finish. The denial. How long? James's voice was deadly quiet. How long were you using my brother? 2 years, Mara whispered. But I never meant for him to get hurt. I was protecting both of you by turning him into a spy, by putting him in a position where he had to choose between betraying his conscience and betraying the people he loved. I gave him money, security, a future. You gave him a death sentence. The truth hung between them like a poisonous cloud. James understood now why Tommy had looked so haunted in their last conversation. Why his brother had been asking strange questions about his cases, about federal operations. Tommy hadn't just been a witness, he'd been Mara's inside man in the witness protection program. Enough sentiment, Anton interrupted. Ms. Chen, you're going to give us the real locations of your network. All of them, Detective. You're going to help us clean up this unfortunate situation. Go to hell, James said. Understand your position. Anton nodded to his men, who raised their weapons. You're going to help us, or we're going to start killing the people Ms. Chen has been protecting. Every face on that wall, every family in hiding, every child who thought they were safe. Mara stepped forward, her hands shaking. Leave them out of this. Then cooperate. Give us what we want, and perhaps some of them will survive. James watched Mara struggle with the choice, and he saw the exact moment when she broke. The weight of all those lives, all those secrets, all those compromises finally crushing the woman who had tried to play God with other people's lives. The real files are in a safe deposit box in Manhattan. First National Bank, box 1247. Key is hidden in my apartment? Better. And the account numbers for your offshore funds? Mara recited a string of numbers that Anton's man carefully recorded. Each digit was another nail in the coffin of her network, another life she was sacrificing, to buy a few more hours. Excellent. Now, Detective, you're going to help us collect these items. Consider it penance for your brother's betrayals. I'm not helping you do anything. Then Ms. Chen dies right now, and we spend the next few days hunting down her network. The hard way. Anton's finger moved to the trigger of his weapon. Your choice. James looked at Mara, seeing not the manipulative puppet master who had destroyed his brother's life, but a woman who had made impossible choices in an impossible situation. She had used him, betrayed him, gotten Tommy killed. But she had also saved dozens of innocent lives. James, don't. Mara's voice was steady now, resigned. Don't let him use you the way I did. Touching. Anton's smile was predatory. But Detective Hawke is going to be very helpful. Aren't you, Detective? James met Mara's eyes one last time and made a choice that would haunt him forever. Yes, I'll help you. But as the words left his mouth, he was already planning how to destroy them all. The ride through Manhattan's pre-dawn streets felt like a funeral procession. Oh. James sat in the back of the SUV beside Mara, their hands zip-tied behind their backs, while Anton rode shotgun and directed his driver through empty avenues. The city looked different at this hour, stripped of its daytime energy and reduced to shadows and streetlights. First National Bank opens at 9, Anton said, checking his watch, which gives us 3 hours to collect the key from Ms. Chen's apartment and prepare for our withdrawal. The building has security, Mara said quietly. Cameras, guards, biometric locks, all of which can be bypassed with the right incentives. Anton turned to look at her with his remaining eye. Your doorman, for instance. Roberto Vasquez, married. 2 children, lives in Queens. Wonder how motivated he'll be to help us when we explain the situation. James felt her tense beside him. Even now, even knowing what she'd done, he couldn't help but admire how she tried to protect innocent people. It was probably what had gotten her into this mess in the first place. Roberto doesn't know anything about my business. Then he won't be in any danger, will he? They pulled up in front of a glass tower that stretched toward the sky like a steel and concrete finger. The building was one of those anonymous luxury high-rises that housed Manhattan's wealthy and powerful, all clean lines and discreet security. Through the lobby windows, James could see Roberto at the front desk. A middle-aged man with graying hair and the tired look of someone working the graveyard shift. Here's how this works, Anton said, as his men prepared to exit the vehicle. Detective, you and Miss Chen will walk into the lobby like you belong there. You'll convince Roberto to let you up to her apartment. Any attempt to alert security or call for help will result in Mr. Vasquez's immediate death. Are we clear? James nodded, his mind already working through possibilities. The building's security system would have cameras, panic buttons, direct lines to the police. But with Mara's life hanging in the balance and innocent bystanders at risk, his options were limited. One more thing, Anton continued. In case you're thinking of being heroic, detective, remember that we have eyes on your ex-wife and daughter in Boston. Sarah and Emma, isn't it? Such a lovely family. Yet the words hit James like ice water. Leave them out of this. That depends entirely on your cooperation. They entered the lobby with Anton's men positioned strategically around the building. Roberto looked up as they approached, his face brightening with recognition. Miss Chen? Working late again? Something like that. Roberto. Mara's voice was steady, but James could see the strain around her eyes. I need to grab some files from upstairs. Of course.
Ow.
And the gentleman with you? Detective Hawke. He's helping me with a security consultation. Roberto nodded and buzzed them through without question. As they rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, James whispered urgently, there has to be another way out of this. There isn't. Mara's voice was flat, defeated. Even if we could escape, Anton has the resources to hunt down everyone. Ever helped? My network is finished. What about the FBI? Your contacts in the Bureau? Dead or compromised? The surveillance footage Anton showed us proved that Victor has infiltrated law enforcement at the highest levels. She looked at him with something that might have been regret. I'm sorry, James, about Tommy, about using you, about everything. Why? He had to know. Why did you drag my brother into this? The elevator chimed softly as they reached her floor. Because I saw you at Tommy's apartment one night. You were bringing him groceries, checking on him like you did every week. And I realized that behind all your rage and determination to destroy me, you were just someone trying to protect the people you loved. So you decided to exploit that. I decided to save you. Both of you. But I was too late to save Tommy, and too selfish to let you go. Her apartment was a reflection of her public persona. Minimalist furniture, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling. Windows that offered a commanding view of the city. But James noticed the personal touches that revealed the woman behind the facade. A photograph of a young boy who must have been Tommy. Books on child psychology and trauma recovery. A small shrine with candles and flowers that spoke of private grief. The key is behind the mirror in my bedroom, Mara said. James followed her. Through the apartment, noting the security systems that had been disabled, the cameras that weren't recording. Anton had been thorough in his preparation. But as they entered the bedroom, Mara moved to a specific panel on the wall. James. Her voice was urgent, barely a whisper. There's something I need to tell you. The safe deposit box is a trap. James's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Victor Kozlov doesn't want my files. He wants me dead, but he needs it to look like an accident. The box is rigged with enough explosives to level half the bank. Her hands shook as she worked behind the mirror. He's planning to kill us all and blame it on a terrorist attack. Then why are you getting the key?
Ah!
Because there's another way. She pulled out a small silver key, but also a second device that looked like a modified cell phone. This can remotely access the bank's security system. I can trigger the explosives from here. James stared at her, understanding dawning with horrifying clarity. You're planning to blow up the bank. I'm planning to blow up Anton and his men when they go to retrieve the files. It's the only way to stop Victor's network. What about the innocent people in the building? The employees? The customers? The bank doesn't open for 3 hours. The building will be empty except for security guards, and I can evacuate them first. Her dark eyes met his with desperate intensity. It's the only way to end this, James. Victor won't stop until everyone I've protected is dead. There has to be another solution. Name one. James couldn't. Every scenario he ran through his head ended with more bodies, more innocent people caught in the crossfire between Mara's network and Victor's empire. But the thought of deliberately triggering an explosion that would kill Anton and his men, regardless of their crimes, went against everything he believed in. I can't be part of this. Then walk away. Mara pocketed both the key and the detonator. Go back to your life, protect your family, and pretend none of this ever happened. No, I can't do that. Then help me end it. The apartment door burst open, and Anton limped in with 2 of his men. Touching scene. I hope you've said your goodbyes. We have the key, James said, stepping protectively in front of Mara. Excellent. Then we can proceed to the bank. Anton's smile was predatory, but first, a small change of plans. One of his men wheeled in a large monitor on a cart. The screen flickered to life, showing multiple camera feeds from locations around the city. James recognized some of the faces. From the wall in the warehouse, family hiding in a small apartment, an elderly man reading in what looked like a safe house, a woman with 2 young children playing in a secured compound. My uncle decided that Ms. Chen's cooperation has been insufficient, so we're going to provide some additional motivation. Anton spoke into a radio, and James watched in horror as armed men entered each of the locations on the screens. The families didn't even have time to scream before the shooting started. No, Mara lunged forward, but Anton's men restrained her. This is what happens when you try to deceive the Kozlov family, Anton said calmly as bodies fell on the monitors. Mara collapsed to her knees, broken sobs racking her body as she watched the people she'd spent years protecting die in real time. James felt something cold and murderous settle in his chest as he watched the executions. These weren't criminals or terrorists. They were children, families, innocent people whose only crime was trusting Mara Chen to keep them safe. You bastard, James growled. This is business, detective. Nothing personal. Anton gestured to his men. Bring them both. It's time to collect our prize. As they were dragged from the apartment, Mara whispered something that only James could. Here, the detonator has a dead man's switch. If my heart stops, the explosives trigger automatically. James looked at her with new understanding. She wasn't planning to blow up the bank and escape. She was planning to die in the explosion, taking Anton and as many of Victor's men with her as possible. It was a suicide mission disguised as a rescue. Operation Mara, don't. It's the only way to end this cycle. Victor's network dies with me, and so do you. I've been dead for 3 years, James, ever since Mumbai. This is just making it official. As they reached the lobby, James made a decision. That would either save them both or damn them together. When Roberto looked up from his desk with concern, James caught his eye and mouthed a single word. Police. Roberto's expression didn't change, but James saw him reach for something under his desk. Whether it was a panic button or a phone, it was their only hope. But as they stepped onto the street, James realized it might already be too late. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan, painting the sky the color of blood, and Mara Chen was counting down the final hours of her life. The First National Bank stood like a monument to American capitalism, its granite facade unmarked by the violence that was about to unfold within its walls. James counted at least 12 of Anton's men positioned around the building, their presence carefully disguised as construction workers and morning commuters. The trap was perfectly set. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Anton limped up the front steps, supported by his cane but still radiating menace. Perfect day for new beginnings. Mara walked beside James in silence, her face a mask of controlled grief. The images from the monitors still burned in both their minds. 23 innocent people murdered because of games played by criminals and spies. James could see the weight of those deaths settling on her shoulders like stones. The bank's interior was a study in marble and mahogany, designed to project stability and trustworthiness. Early morning light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. A handful of employees moved through opening procedures, unaware that they were walking into a killing ground. "Box 1247, Anton said to the bank manager, a nervous man in his 50s who kept glancing at the armed men positioned throughout the lobby. "Ms. Chen needs to access her deposit box immediately, of course. Right this way." They descended into the vault level, past layers of security that seemed impressive, but had already been compromised. James noticed the cameras had been disabled, the panic buttons bypassed. Viktor Kozlov's influence ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The safe deposit box was larger than James had expected, nearly the size of a filing cabinet. Mara inserted the key with steady hands, but he could see the tremor in her fingers as she prepared to open what she believed would be her tomb. "Step back," Anton commanded. "Let me see what treasures Ms. Chen has been hiding." The box opened with a soft click, revealing stacks of documents, hard drives, and what looked like enough evidence to topple governments. But James noticed something else. Small red light blinking in the corner of the box, barely visible unless you knew where to look. "Fascinating," Anton breathed, reaching for the files. Names, locations, account numbers. Everything we need to clean up Uncle Victor's problems. That's when James heard it. The distant wail of sirens growing closer. Roberto had gotten the message, and the NYPD was responding. But they would be too late to stop what was about to happen. "Companies. Coming," one of Anton's men reported through his earpiece. "Expected. Will be gone before they breach the building." Anton began loading documents into a briefcase, his movements quick and efficient. "Ms. Chen, you've been most cooperative. It's almost a shame we have to kill you." "It's almost," Mara agreed quietly. James saw her hand move to her jacket pocket, where the detonator waited. Her finger found the trigger, and her dark eyes met his one final time. In that look, he saw everything she had never said. Regret for the choices that had led them here. Gratitude for understanding her impossible situation. And love for a man she had never allowed herself to claim. "James," she whispered, "tell them I tried to do the right thing." "Mara, don't." But she was already pressing the button. Nothing happened. Anton looked up from his briefcase with a cold smile. "Did you really think we wouldn't find your little insurance policy? The explosives were disabled hours ago. Just like your network, just like your brother, you're going to die knowing you failed to protect anyone." The defeat in Mara's eyes was absolute. Her final gambit, her last desperate attempt to end Victor's network, had been anticipated and neutralized. She sank to her knees in the vault, broken by the weight of her failures. "Kill them both," Anton ordered. "Make it look like they died trying to rob the bank." James closed his eyes and prepared for the end. But instead of gunshots, he heard a different sound. The distinctive thump of flashbang grenades detonating throughout the building. Emergency lighting flickered as the power grid was cut, plunging the vault into near darkness. FBI, everyone on the ground. The tactical team that poured into the vault moved with military precision. Their weapons trained on Anton's men with deadly accuracy. Through the chaos, James saw a familiar face behind the tactical mask. "Agent Mara Chen," the woman announced, pulling off her helmet to reveal features similar to Mara's, but harder, more weathered. "FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force." James stared in shock as he realized the truth. Mara had a sister, a federal agent who had been running her own long-term operation against Viktor Kozlov. "Hello, sister," Sarah said, cutting Mara's zip ties with efficient movements. "Sorry I'm late. You're supposed to be dead," Mara whispered. "Death was greatly exaggerated. I've been undercover in Victor's organization for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to bring them down. Sarah's smile was grim as her team secured Anton and his men. Your little performance tonight gave us everything we needed. Performance? The tracker in Detective Hawke's coat. The fake files you gave Anton. The explosive device that wasn't really connected to anything dangerous. Sarah helped James to his feet. All of it designed to force Victor's organization into making moves that would expose their network. James felt the ground shifting beneath him once again, but this time, the revelation brought hope instead of betrayal. You've been working together. For 18 months, Sarah confirmed. Ever since Tommy came to us with evidence of Victor's infiltration of federal law enforcement, we've been building a case, but we needed Victor to reveal the full extent of his network. The Mumbai incident, Mara said slowly. The agents who died were volunteers who knew the risks. Intelligence you sold was carefully crafted to make Victor believe he had a reliable source while giving us insight into his operations. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Tommy didn't know about the operation. His guilt was real, which made his testimony more convincing. But he's dead. I saw his body. You saw what we wanted Victor to see. Tommy is in witness protection with a new identity, safe alive, and very proud of his sister. The relief that flooded through Mara was visible, transforming her from a broken woman into someone who had just been given back her life. But James noticed something else in her expression. The calculation, the careful manipulation of information to achieve a desired outcome. How much of this was real? He asked quietly. Mara looked at him with eyes that held both regret and hope. My feelings for you, the people we've saved. That network that protects them. All of that was real. And the rest? Theater. Ain't necessary to convince Victor that he was winning until we could spring the trap. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. But if you want to walk away from all of this, from me, I'll understand. James studied her face, seen both the woman who had manipulated him and the one who had risked everything to protect innocent lives. The choice should have been simple. She had lied to him, used his brother, gotten people killed in the service of a greater good that might have been just another justification for playing God. But as he looked into her dark eyes, he saw something else. A woman who had spent years making impossible choices in impossible situations. Someone who had built an empire of shadows not for power or money, but to protect people who had nowhere else to turn. Agent Chen, he said formally, making his decision. I believe your sister and I need to have a long conversation about her methods. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing in the vault. Good luck with that, detective. Hey, she's been lying to federal agents for years. You think you can handle one corporate spy? I think, James said, taking Mara's hand. We're about to find out. As they emerged from the bank into the bright morning sunlight, James realized that the case that had consumed 3 years of his life was finally over. Victor Kozlov's network was broken, the people Mara protected were safe, and somewhere in witness protection, Tommy was alive and building a new life. But the woman beside him remained a mystery wrapped in secrets and justified by good intentions. Loving her would mean accepting that some truths came at a price and some lies were told to protect the innocent. As they walked away from the bank together, Mara squeezed his hand gently. No more secrets, she promised. We'll see, James replied, but he was smiling when he said it. Behind them, the city awakened to a new day, unaware that the shadows that had protected it for so long would continue their work. Different methods, different faces, but the same mission. Some prices were worth paying, James realized. Some secrets were worth keeping. And some women were worth trusting, even when trust seemed impossible. The Ian Deal liked this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.